Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman, hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, continues now. Thanks for being alongside with the ride. Merry Christmas. If it's God, family, and country, we love it. If it's protecting life, liberty, and property, we love it. If it's anything else, we're out. We reject revolution as well, unless it's a Jesus revolution. Then we're in because we follow the Prince of Peace. The Senate is scheduled to vote today on two pieces of legislation they claimed aimed at addressing health care costs. Then the rest of the headline says neither of which are likely to pass. One bill proposed by Democrats seeks to extend federal health insurance subsidies in the form of premium tax credits for 3 years. In other words, business as usual is the Democrat plan. The other bill, authored by Republicans, proposes adding $1,000 to $1,500 into health savings accounts, HSAs, if you will, for eligible consumers. In my opinion, both plans are bogus. Both plans are socialism. One plan wants to give the money directly. The other one wants to give it, in a tax credit? Neither plan is good. Both plans are socialist. Both plans should be shut down. Here's the point, though. They want to act like they're working on something valuable, but they already know neither plan's going to pass. So why are they even voting on it? When they know something's not going to pass, they usually don't vote. They usually hold up and wait and delay the vote and twist arms and whatever else. In this case, it's symbolic. They're trying to let the American people believe they're doing something significant when they're really not. They've been stuck on health care forever. Well, what about choice C? You got the Democrat plan A, Republican plan B. What about choice C? Senator Rand Paul, yes, indeed, introduced the, quote, Health Marketplace for All bill. It's the Health Marketplace for All Act, which allows groups such as Costco members or church associations to negotiate their health premium insurance rates collectively. The bill aims to empower consumers and insurance companies to reduce healthcare costs. The message concludes with a call for support to challenge the influence of insurance companies and promote individual choice in healthcare. See, why don't we talk about Rand Paul's plan? It's the best one of the three. I choose C. If we're going to have government involved in insurance at all. Okay, the Health Marketplace for All Act would just basically let people organize in whatever groups, and those groups would be recognized for discounts. The Christian groups have been doing that forever, although because of regulation, they can't call it health care. They've got to call it health shares, right? Anyway, what a situation. Anyway, the reason I spend time on this today and delay our guest is because they're voting on these things today, except for I doubt they're going to be voting on Rand Paul's option. I got a better option. What if you just get the federal government out of health care entirely, since there's no constitutional mandate or authority delegated in any way for the government to be involved in health care? What about that idea? Oh, no one will take my ideas seriously there. That's just redneck Sam Bushman. He doesn't matter a darn. But I'm telling you right now, the current systems are failing. And if we're not very careful, we're rushing towards Christmas. And oftentimes bad bills get passed at Christmas. Beware. That's how they got the Federal Reserve in place. It was Christmas 1913, and they sold us south and created a criminal cabal called the Federal Reserve, a banking cartel that needs to be shut down immediately. Donald, I hope you're listening. All right, now our guest. Casey Whalen, well-known investigative journalist, dear friend. He's a videographer. The guy just does a phenomenal job, runs a group called North Idaho Exposed. You can check him out at caseywhalen.substack.com. And welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me on again. I appreciate it.
You betcha. There's so much going on. It's hard to even focus on the news here. You're doing so many different live videos on different topics, land rights, and the list just goes on and on. But some of the latest involvements that you've had are very interesting that we want to go over indeed, primarily related to Idaho. But understand, my fellow Americans, it really relates to everybody all across the country, because these issues are not just Idaho issues. We can take the microcosm of Idaho and scale it to the nation and go, what on earth is going on? So there's a program called the 50 States, One Israel. It's an event that was hosted mainly by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel. Anyway, Casey is known for FOIA requests, grandma requests, whatever you want to call them, using the laws on the books to request records and get kind of the pay dirt on what's going on. And oh boy, this latest dig is making people freak out. Everybody loves Israel. They used to say everybody loves Raymond. Now it's everybody loves Israel, right? And I'm not against Israel, and I'm not for Israel. I just think we ought to keep the heck out of it. We ought to obey the founding father-esque viewpoint to avoid foreign entanglements like the plague. But I digress. What'd you find, Casey?
Yeah, so I did a records request through the Idaho Legislature. I was curious after five Idaho delegates went over to Israel September, technically the 13th through the 18th, but it really took place from the 14th to the 18th, anyways. But they were wined and dined and went to some historical sites. They planted trees with their state flag in support of Israel. A lot of people were caught off guard. A lot of constituents in Idaho were unaware that this was happening until this delegation returned, and over 250 delegates or legislators from across the country went on this delegation to Israel. So it was a bit historic. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel has actually tried this in the past, or at least they helped facilitate it with some other groups from what it looks like. And they tried this in the state of California. I believe it was in 2018. They had a handful of people from, legislators from California go over there. So that was sort of their goal, was to get legislators from every state to go there in support of Israel. And so, like I said, is when they returned from this trip recently, they received a lot of backlash. Even one Democrat, Ilana Rubel, received a lot of blowback from her own base because of the issue with Israel and Palestine. So
let me understand this then. What you're saying is that there's a huge plan, 50 states, one Israel, and that's to take these people to Israel and, I don't know, give them a tour or kind of get them to be friendly to Israel or to build relationships or whatever. And you're telling me that Idaho representatives and senators or whatever went on this trip? Why would local Idaho people need to be in Israel?
Yeah, that's really the question, right? And of course, it begs the question of foreign influence and that sort of thing. And a lot of people are not okay with that. I think at this point in time in our country, people want the government to be focused on its constituents, not foreign entity. Of course, like you talked about, George Washington alluded to the danger of foreign entanglements. So I decided I wanted to try to get ahead of this and try to find out. I thought there was more going on with this story, and I wanted to find out the inner workings and the relationships of how this was being done. Because on the face of it, in the media, they were very public about Ministry of Foreign Affairs helping facilitate that. So they were paying for the trip, they were paying for the food, lodging. To Representative Josh Tanner's credit, from what I understand, he did pay for the trip himself, and that's great. But ultimately, we do give a lot of money to Israel, and you could say de facto, this is a U.S. tax-funded trip.
Now, as you received these records and dug in with your well-targeted requests, you found out that there's affiliations with the National Association of Jewish Legislatures. That's very interesting indeed. Not to mention the Jewish Federation of North America, and I guess local organizations, the Idaho Israel Alliance, and so on. These are entanglements that go beyond just foreign entanglements too, because they're right here in America. And you kind of look at this and go, what other country gets that kind of involvement where you've got what's this thing called? Foreign Affairs Department of Israel. Then you've got the National Association of Jewish Legislators or Legislators. What the heck is that? National Association of Jewish Legislators? I thought legislators were like representing their constituents.
Yeah, so it based through these. What I did is I had emails during like a 2-month duration around the time of the trip, before and after. And so I when I got these emails, I first got the non-Jewish legislators' emails, and the only one that's a Jewish Democrat is Ilana Rubel. So those I actually had to pay for. They gave me those last. So I knew I had to get those just because of the, if she's a Jewish, so that obviously ties with the trip to Israel. And I was assuming that she was largely played a hand. It looks like she did. But when I got these emails from the non-Jewish legislators, it was, those were all relatively similar. When I got Ilana Rubel's emails, that's when I found that she was contacted by these two organizations you just mentioned, the National Association of Jewish Legislators and the Jewish Federations of North America. And an email from Jeff Weiss from the National Association of Jewish Legislators, he specifically asked Ilana Rubel if he could suggest 2 or 3 non-Jewish legislators.
All right, hang on.
The
this plot
delegation
thickens, ladies and gentlemen. Casey Whalen with me. We got to dig in. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcast at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
As the United States boldly stepped forward in the glorious light provided by its new Constitution in 1787, the nations of the earth were in awe of the newfound strength and hope of this free land. Today, the nation stands at a crossroads. A divergence from the original intent put forth in the United States Constitution has brought grave threats to our beloved nation. A miracle is needed if the United States is to survive. That miracle is again the pure application of the United States Constitution. I'm Scott Bradley. In my To Preserve the Nation book and lecture series, I bring forth truths that will help raise up a new generation of statesmen like those noble Americans who founded this land. Vigorous application of these principles will invigorate and restore the nation, and we may become again the freest, most prosperous, most respected, and happiest nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com to begin that restoration.
Leader of North Idaho Exposed, Casey Whalen, well-known broadcast journalist and videographer, with us. We're talking about this 50 states, one Israel event. A lot of people from Idaho went to it. Casey Whalen pulled a bunch of FOIA and grandma request records, and they show affiliations for a lot of these people with the National Association of Jewish Legislators. Now, I don't even know what that is. I didn't know we had like groups for Jewish legislators, groups for black legislators. What if you put together a group for white Anglo-Saxon legislators? You'd have your head handed to you, right? Very, very interesting. And then they say, oh man, everybody's like, a bigot. Everybody is whatever. And all these, what if you're a white male heterosexual Christian married? Is there any, if you get abused, is there any bigotry that can be, what's the term for it? Nobody even knows, see? Anyway, I digress, except for what this group then, in her emails, they're saying, hey, can you help us find some non-Jews to back us? Is that the deal?
Yeah, they were essentially trying to find legislators for country. I'm assuming that this is just a microcosm of what's happening in every state. I'm sure if people listening to this would use this as a template to do a record request through your Legislative Services Office, which is actually very easy to do, you can probably find the same ties that I'm finding in my state. So I encourage people to definitely do that. But essentially,
and if you need to get a hold of Casey Whalen, how do people do that? If they're like, man, I want you to help me with my grandma or my FOIA requests, I want to see what's going on.
To help, shoot me an email. It's North Idaho Exposed, EXPOSED, North Idaho Exposed at protonmail.com, and I'll be happy to help you. So in the emails from National Association of Jewish Legislators, Jeff Weiss was asking Representative Alana Rubel to invite 2 to 3 non-Jewish legislators on the trip. Again, so this is happening probably around the country. And so in my opinion, it's an influence operation is what it is. And I have a Substack where I wrote about this. I released the public records that I received so that people in Idaho can see for themselves what's really happening. And I also included some emails condemning Alana Rubel for going on this trip from constituents. So you can see for yourself really what's going on, what's not being reported in the media. In the mainstream media, I should say.
If you represent me in the state of Idaho, what on earth are you doing taking conflict of interest money and going to Israel, number one? I don't know what it has to do with your legislative duties. Now, if you want to go on vacation and go on your own time with your own money, whatever. But the problem is these affiliations that I'm seeing creating conflict of interest, going on these trips and having people pay for them. Most situations, they would be absolutely barbecued for doing this. But see, here's the problem. You cannot criticize the Jewish tie or the Israeli tie in America now. And if you do, you're somehow a bigot, a hater, you're somehow whatever, right? And you just can't get away from that kind of, you're anti-Semitic, you see. Well, there's no anti-Semitic word for anybody but Jewish people. I don't understand that. That's anti-Semitic on its very face, isn't it? To just pick out one group and create a special term that, hey, anytime you don't like or agree or focus on everything they want you to, then somehow you're just, wow, now you're a bigot. Now you're a hater. Now you're an enemy. Now you're anti-Semitic. No other group has that kind of even word to describe that. Now, I'm not against the Jewish people. I think the state of Israel is corrupt, big time. I think the Palestinians are too, so I want to just stay the heck out of it. But the reason I'm spending so much time breaking down these details is this. These legislative people getting these special privileges or special interest and then having these associations, the National Association of Jewish Legislators, do you have to prove you're Jewish to be in that? Or can I join it? Right? I'm not Jewish. Never have been. Not against the Jewish people. Don't hate them. Don't wish any harm to come to any of them. But I don't trust their government. Neither do I trust our government. But can I join some of these groups or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. But I just wanted to can I try to share my screen real quick just to see if it works?
Yeah, while you're getting that shared really quick. So I want to know, do I got to be a religious Jew? Do I got to be an ethnic Jew? Do I just got to love the Jewish people and love the government of Israel to be a member of that? And this really smacks to conflicts of interest. Now, others will criticize us and say, well, you guys only bring this up when it's the Jews. What about other countries or Israel? What about other countries? Let me be very, very, very clear. I have a problem when we let any foreign entity, whether it be the World Economic Forum, some clown organization that has no authority whatsoever, or whether it be the World International Bank or the World Criminal Courts or any other nation, I have just as much of a problem with that conflict of interest as I do this one. Okay? The reason we're isolating this one right now is because these people just went on this trip. Because they're working on the 50 states, one Israel deal right now. So we're highlighting it. When it's other countries, I have just as much of a problem. What if we found out that a lot of these people were involved with Venezuela or, Colombia? And we found out, hey, we don't know if they're involved in the drug trade or what. They sure got interesting ties. I'd be just as worried about that. So this isn't a hate the Jew discussion like they want you to believe that it is. That's a lie. It's a conflict of interest, a foreign involvement in our elections and in our oath of office process that's of concern, Casey.
Absolutely. It's completely correct. And when I started doing all these records, a lot of ire from people, it just doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's about freedom of speech, which we'll get to, and just this influence operation. So I did share my screen. Can you see it now? I don't know if they can show that, but it should be sharing there.
All right, it's there, sir. We're ready to go.
Okay, great. Okay, all right, so this is my Substack. It's CaseyWhalen.substack.com, and
yes,
one of my more recent articles is entitled Israel Influence Op Targets American Legislators. And so this is where you'll find a lot of the records requests that I conducted over the last couple of months. People can take a look at that. I want to show you here. This is the National Association of Jewish Legislators. As you can see here, it was founded in 1977, a national nonpartisan organization. The goal here is to create a platform where Jewish legislators can share policy ideas, support each other, and represent the Jewish community interests and state.
Why do we need to take Jewish or Israeli viewpoints into our legislative governing for the people in local Idaho?
I don't know.
Why is that a thing, folks?
So anyways, it's really interesting to find this information out that is very selective where these emails were going and kind of what was really happening behind the scenes. And here's an email here from Jeff Weiss to Alana Rubel at talking about, could you invite 2 or 3 non-Jewish legislators?
I got a question. If they do the bidding of this legislative group and they become involved and they kind of carry it out, what's the difference between a Jewish legislator and a non-Jewish legislator?
Yep, these are all really great questions. But the underlying theme that keep occurring with when you look at what these groups are, we can go to like what the National or the Jewish Federations of North America. They've been around since like the early 1900s. They've rebranded a couple times. They just hosted a general assembly.
Well, they rebrand because people discover their conflict of interest and expose them, and then they have to rename themselves, right?
Yeah, this happens time and time again, as we've noticed, right, Sam? So, anyways, they're very proactive, and so it's just really interesting to see all this. One thing I wanted to mention was that our state, one of our representatives, Barbara Ehart, attempted to pass a routing slip last legislative cycle. It was to be an anti-Semitism bill, and luckily it didn't pass committee, so it didn't go through. But this routing slip 32552, this was leaked to me. Actually, this routing slips are not public, so someone actually was so concerned about this bill or this potential bill that they leaked the routing slip to me, and I made it public, which caused a big uproar earlier this year. But one of the things that really grabbed my attention from my research over the years, I've researched a lot of human rights groups in the state. That's been my passion because I've seen them working with the DOJ and the FBI to potentially report political adversaries, conservatives who don't agree with the LGBTQ ideology agenda. So
let's make it clear.
Yeah, well, this routing slip is really interesting. What got my attention though is the second page here where it talks about penalties. It talks about how malicious harassment. This is extremely interesting, and it does state here that the punishment for malicious harassment, and if you cause an injury to a person or property, and you use a slur, racial, gender, that sort of thing, they can charge that as an additional crime, as an enhancement, and so it gets very dangerous. Who decides what that looks like, right? So the penalty here for this anti-Semitism bill is malicious harassment, which is this one says here not to exceed 5 years in jail or $5,000 or both. That's pretty heavy.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Hold on. So malicious harassment. What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's like I said. It's basically.
I think the IRS was maliciously harassing me. Don't you?
Yeah, well, that's in the eye of the beholder. So here's Idaho's malicious harassment law right here. So if you cause physical injury to another person or damage property, and
what
you
if it's
threaten
in self-defense?
by word, well, it can be construed however they want. But if you threaten or act to do something, it's basically just like use like race or gender, religion to slander somebody while doing these things, they can charge additional charges.
All right, Stand Up for Idaho. That's a great group that decided to have Casey Whalen speak and highlight some of this stuff about Israel and primarily about Idaho's malicious harassment law. He had the opportunity to speak, and the blowback is through the roof. In my humble opinion, it just proves that Casey Whalen is right over the target. We'll talk more. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live.
Pursuing liberty, using the Constitution as our guide. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The U.S. is ratcheting up the pressure on Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, the target, according to President Trump, a vessel that was carrying sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran.
We've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
A Maryland federal judge ordering Salvadoran national Kilmar Abrego Garcia freed from immigration detention while a legal challenge to his deportation advances. He's lived in the U.S. for years after entering the country illegally as a teen. His case become a rallying point for those opposed to the Trump administration's enforcement of federal immigration law. The Pacific Northwest is reeling from intense flooding, the result of an atmospheric river. It's dumped incredible amounts of rain all across the region over the past few days.
This is producing a lot of heavy rainfall, and we're seeing totals over 10, 12 inches.
Greg Galena at the National Weather Service. The Senate's gearing up for a vote today on two competing health care bills. One bill calls for change, while the other favors the status quo.
With COVID-era health care subsidies set to expire, Republicans want to replace them with expanded government-funded savings accounts, an idea backed by President Trump.
We want the money go directly to the people. We want you to go out and buy your own health insurance, and you'll get much better health insurance at a much lower cost. Senators will also vote on a Democrat-sponsored bill that would extend the Obamacare tax credits for another 3 years. Greg Clugston, Washington.
The U.S. trade deficit fell for the second straight month in September. Influenced by the president's tariffs, the deficit dropped nearly 11%, hitting its lowest level since June of 2020. The Dow up 467 points. Townhall.com.
Hey, it's Mike Gallagher. The holidays are right around the corner, and you know what that means. Travel, gifts, family gatherings, and a whole lot of spending. Here's a way to get ahead of it all. Call my friends Mike and Brian and the team at Fellowship Home Loans. Rates have dropped again. That means you could refinance, lower your monthly payment, even skip your next 2 mortgage payments. That's right, 2 months with no mortgage payment. Put away the checkbook. Keep that money for the holidays. You won't be making any more payments till 2026. Maybe you're not looking to refinance, but you need access to cash. Well, Fellowship now offers their own HELOC and line of credit. Approval just takes a few minutes, and you can have funds in your account in as little as 4 days. Use it to pay off bills, finish a renovation, or simply get ready for the new year. Just go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/MikeG, fellowshiphomeloans.com/MikeG, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman, Casey Whalen, well-known journalist, North Idaho Exposed. Man, these two topics aren't really linked together. But the reason they're together in our discussion today is because they kind of relate in the sense that Casey has been working on both of these topics, and he's been relentlessly attacked over both of them. One, we're talking about the 50 states. One, Israel event. A bunch of Idaho legislative people went to it in Israel on who knows whose dime, right? So Casey requested some records, got some intel on it. We're concerned about the conflict of interests when we literally have Jewish legislator Democrats being asked by these organizations, hey, bring some non-Jew people in, will you? The National Association of Jewish Legislators, what's that about? This Jewish organization of North America that's like regional. Idaho-Israel Alliance, what's that all about? Why are we so focused on Israel if you're locally legislating in Idaho? It doesn't make any sense. So Casey brought it up, got attacked relentlessly. Then he started speaking out about Idaho's malicious harassment law, did a bunch of digging into that as well. And then this great group, Stand Up for Idaho, invited Casey to speak. He spoke, he covered both topics, and oh boy, was the attacks swift, showing that Casey Whalen's right over the target. Casey, show what else you discovered, and then we can get into your speech and how that kind of went.
Yeah, I just want to kind of finish on this malicious harassment law here in Idaho, because that's really how, with this anti-Semitism bill, that's how they're creating these specialized class of people is through that law. And so it's important to understand.
So let's see, if you're Jewish, then you're at the top of the list. If you're lesbian, bisexual, transgender, you're at the top of the list. If you hate America, you're at the top of the list. If you're, God, family, country, or
whatever,
then you're bottom of the list, right?
Yeah, whatever is decided. Yeah, basically. So it's important to understand why. And so real quickly, I'll just tell you why. And so in 1982, was when this push for this malicious harassment law was happened, and it was enacted in Washington State prior, and so Idaho attempted to mimic it essentially, and it had happened in some other states, I believe, too, at the time. But Jim Jones, former Idaho AG, former Idaho Supreme Court Justice, and so he was in favor of this, along with another ad hoc coalition called the Citizens Coalition Against Malicious Harassment. So they essentially got this bill passed, the Idaho Malicious Harassment Law, which again, if you injure somebody or their property and you use a slur against race, religion, whatever, they can.
Yeah, if an individual or an organization damages a person or property, as you said before, while using a, quote, slur based on race, religion, gender, the list goes on, then, hey, you could be charged with this, quote, additional enhancement, a civil and criminal, upcharge? So what we're going to say is, look, you committed a crime, you harmed somebody or property or whatever, crimes are already on the books. What we're going to add is kind of a hate modifier to this, right?
Exactly. Yep. And so this is the next slide I'm going to show you here. If you can go to my screen, I don't know if you're showing it there, but this is the Citizens Coalition Against Malicious Harassment. Sorry about these acronyms, but this is how they roll. They rebranded and they became a nonprofit 501c3 in 1987 called the Northwest Coalition of Malicious Harassment, which consisted of the 5 northwestern states, Pacific Northwest. And so you had groups. Here's the master list here. You have the El B'nai B'rith. You have the Montana Human Rights Network. We've got Department of Justice offices in different states. We've got Kootenai County Task Force on Human Relations, Sam, we have our buddy here, Leonard Zeskind, who's mentioned from
there you go.
The Institute for Research Education on Human Rights, our bud, our pal, who's writing a bunch of nice articles about us over the years. So you can see where this malicious harassment stuff is coming from.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Is IRHR guilty of malicious harassment there?
Sorry?
Is the IRHR guilty of malicious harassment?
No, they can do what they want. For instance, like here, my next slide here, if you can show this, is Jim Jones, the guy who was former Idaho AG, former Idaho Supreme Court Justice in 2022, writes an article called "Idaho Must Once Again Send the Hate Mongers Packing," promoting this DOJ program called United Against Hate, which we won't go into today. But in his article, he talks about white nationalists and Christians, and so you can see how the very groups that complain about white supremacy, complain about white nationalism, Christianity, are the very people creating this paradigm. And so later, after this Idaho malicious harassment law was passed, we're now seeing the ramifications of the creation of specialized classes.
Yep. So government's basically, through this Idaho malicious harassment law, is really weaponizing government to attack certain groups of people and protect certain groups of people, creating kind of a stratus. So if you're a Christian, bottom of the list, right? And that's kind of the problem. And so Casey spoke out about this. He spoke to the people. He highlighted what he found. He's just a reporter. He's not picking sides. He's just simply saying, this is what's going on. Beware, people. Here's the ties they have. This IREHR and everything else has communist ties. All these groups were being ran by non-governmental organizations and governor partnerships and regional governments and Israel and everybody but the constituents is the problem that we're highlighting here, irrespective of who. All these compromising alliances are damaging to the constituents of Idaho. Nevertheless, when Casey spoke at this event, this Democrat legislator was handing out flyers?
It was a Republican, actually.
Oh, Republican. All right.
Barbara Ehart is a Republican. I believe it's District 33 in the Idaho Falls area, where Stand Up for Iowa is located. So I was speaking virtually last week on December 3rd, and Barbara had spoke a month prior and talked about her trip to Israel through the 50 states on Israel delegation, and how the anti-Semitism bill she passed did not infringe on rights. So if you can pull up my screen here, she handed out these flyers. Someone actually during the QA came up and said, they said, I won't say verbatim, can't remember, but he basically said, Barbara Ehart handed out these flyers talking about you and Dave Riley, because my friend Dave was supposed to speak at this event too, but he didn't, just didn't work out. And so it's these flyers that she handed out. I have a copy of it here. She's kind of like, questioning if I'm a reporter, and just disseminating information to the public is journalism, pure and simple, and no one gets to decide who gets to do that. So this whole argument about that is just ridiculous.
Well, and so she sent these flyers or whatever, passed out these things, which really is, in my opinion, libel and slander against you. They claim that you're a bigot, that you're a racist, that you're a hater, that you defended Nick Fuentes, that you this, that you that, that you. But the problem is that you just have free association, and they act like that's not acceptable. They can hang out with people who commit abortions. They can hang out with communists like the IREHR, in my opinion. No harm, no foul. They can partner with Jewish organizations that conflict with Idaho's not only law, but understanding what our constituents expect of the people. And at the end of the day, you go, wait a minute. And now she's using this to libel and slander you. I mean, are you a Jew hater, Casey?
No, this has never been about that. It's been about it's just about protecting rights and understanding the influence that's coming from foreign actors, and that I'm not okay with that at all. So that's really the point of the whole thing. But in this flyer she handed out, she said that I admire Adolf Hitler, essentially, and then I started doing my hair like him. I mean, really, this is from a representative in Idaho who's doing this himself.
Well, they maligned Jesus Christ. They maligned Donald Trump, and they're now attacking you as well. So they passed that out. It was a disaster, but then they took it to the press, right?
Yes, a gentleman named Stephen Taggart wrote an article, basically, and so that was put into the Idaho Statesman as an op-ed, and I'm working on a rebuttal right now, which should have out soon. But I wanted to mention, though, that in this flyer that Barbara was handing out, because she's the one that sponsored the potential anti-Semitism bill that failed last cycle, and she states here, I'll just read what she says, RS 32552, known as the Prohibitive Anti-Semitism Bill, contains language that absolutely protects freedom of speech. The following is found on page 5, lines 45 and 46, which state 3, nothing in this section shall be construed to A, diminish or infringe upon any right protected under the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States or the Constitution of the State of Idaho, or B, conflict with federal law or state law concerning discrimination. So that may be true, but in my opinion, just by having that malicious harassment penalty in the anti-Semitism bill in itself influences the behavior of the constituency, and that is not the job of the legislature.
And my question is, if the bill has no penalties, is it a bill or is it a resolution? If there are penalties, how can we say that it doesn't infringe?
It says there's a penalty in the bill, so it's really just talking out of both sides of their mouth.
All right. Anyway, this attorney is the guy who wrote the op-ed opinion. Attorneys are great for opinions. Wrote this opinion piece attacking Casey Whalen. Casey's response starts out shooting the messenger. Amen. We'll break it down for you in seconds. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live.
Attention collectors and savvy investors. We are excited to announce a momentous evolution in our journey. Introducing Free Water Coin Company, formerly known as Rust Coin and Gift. This rebranding takes us back to the very roots of where it all began, Free Water, Oregon. It's a tribute to the legacy of Al Rust and a celebration of 3 generations of dedication to excellence in the world of coins and precious gifts. Al, Brian, and Jake Rust standing strong through 64 years of service. Discover a world of exceptional service at Free Water Coin Company, your premier destination for genuine, honest money and precious gifts. Under Brian's expert guidance, Free Water Coin Company, building on the legacy of Rust Coin and Gift, continues its tradition of trust and excellence. Visit us at our Provo, Utah location. Explore our treasures online at freewatercoinco.com or call us at 801-377-1574. Free Water Coin Company, where your future is built one honest coin at a time.
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
All right, Casey Whalen with me. We're talking about this battle, ladies and gentlemen, regarding this malicious harassment law in Idaho. They claim has no penalties, but the penalties are right in the law. And the bottom line is then this op-ed piece was written by this attorney attacking Casey. And so Casey's working on a response to it. But the bottom line is they're saying Idaho group hosted journalist who flirts with Holocaust denial. Now, I just want to kind of back up for a second and say this to the mainstream press. Why, when you interview somebody, is it, quote, okay? But when we interview somebody, it's not. If Tucker interviews Nick Fuentes, it's not okay. Oh, Matt, Tucker's horrible, evil, racist, bigot, anti-Semite, horrible. But yet these clowns can interview all kinds of people that murder babies and abortions, all kinds of... What about this Jewish organization? What about some of these communist organizations like the IREHR? What about all that? So they're very picky in that they can do whatever they want to, and it's above reproach. But if you do it, you're either not a real journalist or you're a bigot, right, Casey?
Yeah, absolutely. That seems to be the case. And I recently interviewed a lot of what they put in the article was I went to TPUSA last year in Detroit on Media Row, and I didn't want to go to see Donald Trump. I just didn't want to deal with all the security and stuff. So I was at my hotel across the street, and I was looking out the window, and a bunch of Groypers and Nick Fuentes ended up showing up. So I filmed the whole thing, and it was really interesting. They were
okay. So they want to make it like you were Nick Fuentes' friend. You're carrying the ball for him,
whatever.
And you're just simply saying, I was at a different event. I saw these people all come out. I'm a journalist. I chose to film it and kind of report on it.
Yeah, whatever. This is what they do. But I just recently interviewed Gurmar Rudolph on the Holocaust. He's a chemist who has been exposing a lot of things about the Holocaust. And then I also interviewed Dr. Michael Rechtenwald, who runs AZAC, the Anti-Zionist America Political Action Committee. So I want to interview everybody. I like to interview people that are somewhat controversial because it's a little fun. It's a little dangerous, in this modern time. So it's okay because it kind of this whole thing with 50 states, one Israel, really highlighted and accentuated that some of these people and their positions are extremely worried. So that in itself is telling, and it's a God thing, that I'm doing this, to be quite honest.
Amen to that. So this shooting the messenger thing is kind of what I want to highlight, though. Hey, when we're talking about this malicious harassment law, I don't know what that has to do with your views on anything else, for that matter. It's about the discussion about this malicious harassment law, and does it have problems that the American people, the constituents, need to know about? Same thing with this Israel discussion. Okay, 50 states, one Israel. Does the American people, do the constituents know that their legislators are going to these places, doing these things? For example, do you know that your police departments are probably trained by Israel? Are you comfortable with that? Okay, so it's all this that we're bringing to the table, and then what they want to do is shoot the messenger and attack you personally as if somehow you're a bigot. Now, you've interviewed a Holocaust denier, but here's the problem. Whether you agree or disagree with the Holocaust, see, I personally am not a denier, but I don't believe the official story is the way the government told us it was. I don't, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. Do I think it was a horrible, horrific time in history? Absolutely. But do I think that the government told us the truth about it all? No, I don't. And the proof in the pudding is there were operations in the government that let a lot of these criminals slip through the cracks. And Russia and kind of the United States kind of split up the bad guys and protected a lot of people that they shouldn't have. That's for starters. But anyway, I digress. They want to pin this on you that, hey, you have all these beliefs, and then they want to make it because of your beliefs or because of your, quote, guilt by association scenario. That's how they want to pitch this. And they don't want to talk about the 50 state, one Israel. They don't want to talk about the Idaho Malicious Act or Harassment Act law discussion. They don't want to talk about those. So what they do is they just attack the messenger, Casey.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I wanted to mention before I forget is that these groups like the Idaho Israel Alliance, which is a local group based Boise that would meet with the legislators before and after the trip, the National Association of Jewish Legislators, the Jewish Federations of North America. The underlying theme in all of this is that they want an IHRA definition about the Holocaust. They want an anti-Semitism bill. And that's really, in my opinion, a lot of what this is about, this push across the country to implement, hate speech, hate crime type legislation, and classifying Jews will just be one of the many. We have civil rights protecting all that. At the end of the day, do we really need all these specialized classes of people? I don't think we do. I think we just need to uphold the laws that we already currently have against just regular things. We don't need to create enhancements. It's just a slippery slope that we're going up here.
Well, and the problem with those enhancements are they, by law, will do what they're doing now in these articles and in this flyer this lady passed out. They're basically painting somebody into a corner based on a dishonorable, dishonest, fake narrative. Hey, Casey's a Holocaust denier. Well, whether he is or not isn't the point. Painting him as a bigot, as an anti-Semite or whatever else, it doesn't matter what his beliefs are on the Holocaust. He has every right to believe and think what he wants to in America. They make it sound like being a Holocaust denier is a crime. Now, in Germany, it is. They put people in jail for that and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, do we believe that you can think what you want? What if somebody doesn't believe the Holocaust happened? I don't agree with them, but do they have that right? Absolutely. I mean, this is about rights, Casey.
Yeah, yep. That's it. At the end of the day, that's exactly what it is. So I just think by shining a light on a lot of these things, asking questions, it really kind of takes care of itself, to be quite honest. So, or organically, the Overton window has shifted so much now that people understand what's going on with the war, against with Israel and Palestine and all this. People are starting to figure out what's really going on here, and I think that's healthy. And we should ask questions. We should talk to people that we maybe don't agree with or we have questions about, and it's completely healthy, and that's what we should do.
Well, and when it comes to shooting the messenger, whether you've interviewed people or not, whether you have personal views they agree with or disagree with or not, isn't the point. The point is these two issues about the 50-state, one Israel, and the ties there that are of great concern and to the constituents of Idaho, and then this Idaho malicious harassment law and the changes that it will make that Americans may not realize. But what they're trying to do is just say, hey, because Casey went to TPUSA and eventually covered a Nick Fuentes event outside because he got kicked out of TPUSA. And then, hey, this interview that he did, now he's just a bigot, a hater. He has no credibility. But what we've done now is shot the messenger. We've simply said, hey, he's not a worthy reporter because we disagree with him on our own beliefs. But at the end of the day, the question is Casey Whalen speaking the facts? Do we have these ties to our local legislators? Are we going to have these eventual harassment laws that pretend they don't have a penalty, but at the end of the day, people are going to go to prison over their thoughts and beliefs? Because this harassment law really starts to get into, you believe the wrong things, Casey, therefore we're going to shoot the messenger. You believe the wrong things, Casey, so we're now going to use the law against you. That's where this is headed, right?
Yeah, and so real quickly before we run out of time, these human rights groups will use these things that happen. For instance, last year in Coeur d'Alene, there was the UCAA women's basketball team in Coeur d'Alene. There was some black people in that crowd of girls, and some 18-year-old kid yelled out the window the N-word, and he didn't threaten her. I mean, he did say, I know you're the N-word, but I'd still have sex with you, is kind of what he said. That's kind of what he said. And at the end of the day, they couldn't charge him with anything. He never actually harmed anybody. He never damaged property. Yeah, he did use some sort of slur, but because he didn't he didn't commit a crime, they couldn't charge him with that enhancement. So they
want to change that. Now, I don't defend what the guy said at all.
No, but this 18-year-old kid, just real quickly, his father disowned him. He lost his job at the Coeur d'Alene Resort. So there were ramifications from what he said, but I don't think he deserved to be in jail for maybe 5 years and face a $5,000 penalty over his words. That's extremely dangerous. Who decides? So I don't want to live in that world, and so I'm encouraging people across the country to show up this legislative cycle and be prepared, because they will be passing anti-Semitism bill laws, anti-BDS bill. We have that's already passed in Idaho in 2021. So people need to become much more proactive.
And the most important reason we have you on about this is not just Idaho people. That's where we basically pulled the records and proved the facts and been attacked. Yes, Casey Whalen, CaseyWhalen.substack.com. If you want to learn more, North Idaho Exposed, look for it. He's available on Rumble and Twitter and everywhere else, doing his great in the field reporting stuff. But at the end of the day, the issue is is happening in your state, in your local municipalities. This is happening. They're working on these laws to barbecue you for what you think, to shoot the messenger, to focus on these ties to Israel, and to basically make everybody really an anti-Semite. You're either in bed with the blacks and the Israelis, or you're an enemy. And that's the way they want to pitch it. And I reject that. We already have laws against crimes. By all means, if people commit crimes, prosecute, fine. But this thought police idea that we're backing into is absolutely dangerous. And anybody who can raise the alarm bell on that, good on them. And I reject this idea that we're going to create guilt by association, or some kind of this idea that, because someone doesn't think exactly like you do on something else, that they've lost all credibility. That's the crisis playing out in America today. Casey, final word to the public?
People can follow me. I put out a lot of stuff on X. Casey_Whalen, WHAL. Thank you so much for your time today, Sam.
You betcha. Casey Whalen doing a phenomenal job. North Idaho Exposed. You know we'll have him back. Thanks for being alongside for the ride. Hopefully it was educational and entertaining. If you stand up for God, family, and country, you're getting attacked. But just know that you stand with your Savior, Jesus Christ. That's a great place to stand, in my humble opinion. Thanks for being alongside. LovingLiberty.net. Spread the word, share the love. God save the Republic of the United States of America.